Hey everyone, are you feeling stressed and overwhelmed with studying for your real estate exam? Well, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to help you prepare for your exam by providing clear and concise answers to 50 multiple choice questions in just 30 minutes. So grab a pen and paper and let's get started. Good luck.
A sales contract that does not include consideration is voidable, void, unenforceable, valid. The answer is void. A void contract is not binding or enforceable by the parties. To be valid, contracts must have the essential elements of competent parties, meeting of the minds, legal objective, and consideration. If the contract is for the sale of real estate, it must also be in writing. In a suit in court to force a party to a contract to complete the requirements of the contract is called a suit for damages, injunction, compensation, specific performance. The answer is specific performance. Specific performance means sue to perform the terms of the contracts. Specific performance is available to both the seller and buyer. Damages are a monetary award. If a note is taken as earnest money, it is in the seller's best interest to have the note payable on the first banking day after the day that the buyer takes possession. At closing. On the seller's acceptance. Within 72 hours of closing. The answer is on the seller's acceptance. The note should be payable immediately upon acceptance, otherwise, the seller will be left waiting to see if the buyer will have the cash to complete the transaction. A written agreement wherein a seller agrees to sell and a buyer agrees to buy real estate on the terms and conditions set forth therein is called a purchase offer, listing contract, contract of sale, bill of sale. The answer is a contract of sale. The purchase contract or contract for sale is used to contract for the sale of real estate. The purchase or sales offer is the contract before the agreement and notice of acceptance. The listing contract is an employment contract to sell real estate. A bill of sale transfers ownership of personal property. The most used contingency in a sales contract is for title insurance, lease option, financing, first right to buy. The answer is financing. The most used contingency is for financing. It allows the buyer to terminate if he or she cannot obtain a loan. The document used to change a contract that has already been signed by both parties is called a attachment, agreement, amendment, addendum. The answer is amendment. Amendments are used to modify or change executory contracts. Addenda are attached to contracts. Liquidated damages is most likely to be found in which of the following? Employment contract, purchase contract, listing contract, closing documents. The answer is a purchase contract. Liquidated damages is an amount agreed to in advance that will compensate a party to a purchase contract for any loss he or she may suffer. The best way to avoid legal problems when preparing sales contracts is by having a lawyer draft them, putting all terms in writing, having the broker draft them, having the seller draft them. The answer is putting all terms in writing. For real estate professionals, the best way to avoid legal problems is by creating a trail of written agreements, including written sales contracts. Most parties don't want to pay for an attorney to draft the contract. If the current or previous owner of a property died as a result of a homicide or suicide, when should the owner or real estate professional disclose this information to a potential buyer? Only if directed by the broker. If allowed to by the state stigmatized property law. Never. Always. The answer is if allowed to by the state stigmatized property law. Each state determines what stigmatizes property and what can be disclosed to buyers. If the legal description is too long to include in the body of a sales contract, the salesperson should use the street address, attach it and make reference to it, consult his or her broker or lawyer, handwrite a second offer that has only the legal description. The answer is to attach it and make reference to it. It is permissible to attach the legal description to the contract at the time it is prepared rather than writing it into the contract itself. When a purchase and sale contract has been signed by the buyer and given to the seller's broker with an earnest money check, the earnest money must be returned to the buyer if he or she withdraws the offer after the seller accepts and signs the contract. The transaction is considered an offer until the seller accepts the contract and the acceptance is communicated to the buyer. The buyer can sue for specific performance if the seller refuses to sign the contract. The transaction constitutes a valid contract by law. The answer is the transaction is considered an offer until the seller accepts the contract and the acceptance is communicated to the buyer. Until the seller signs, accepting the offer is not a binding contract, only an offer. Therefore, the buyer cannot sue if the seller refuses to sign. The purchase contract specifies that the listing brokerage and the seller may keep the earnest money if the buyer defaults. This stipulation is known as unilateral rescission, mutual rescission, punitive damages, liquidated damages. The answer is liquidated damages. Liquidated damages is an amount agreed to in advance that will compensate a party to contract for any loss he may suffer. This is what the earnest money deposit represents. Under what conditions may a contract be changed after it has become an executory contract? Only after the original contract is void. If all parties sign an amendment. Never. If either party elects to make the change. The answer is if all parties sign an amendment. A contract can only be changed or amended in writing with agreement and signatures of all parties. The proper procedure for changing a contract that has become binding is to sign a separate amendment. Replace the old contract with a new one. Write a counteroffer with the new terms. Write the changes in the original contract, then date and initial the changes. The answer is sign separate amendment. Amendments are used to modify or change executory contracts. The phrase time is of the essence is most likely to be found in a broker's loan statement, listing contract, deed, sales contract. The answer is sales contract. Time is of the essence means that both parties agree to perform by any date specified in the contract. If one party is ready to perform by a specified date and the other is not, the party ready to perform can declare a default of the contract. It does not require either party to perform before the specified date. This clause is found in the sales contract. The purpose of reviewing an offer with the buyer is to ensure that his or her wishes are expressed in the contract and the contract is legally binding. The legal description is correct. The buyer understands the financial and other obligations, lesser than. The contract is filled out correctly. The answer is the buyer understands the financial and other obligations. It is not the purchaser's duty to complete the offer or verify legal descriptions. When items in a pre-printed sales contract are crossed out, it is necessary to have the change made by a lawyer. Have all parties initial the changes and include the date and time. Have at least one party initial it. Have a notary public sign the change. The answer is have all parties initial the changes and include the date and time. Having parties initial, date, and time stamp changes verifies that all parties agreed to and understood the changes being made. Who is more likely to win a suit for specific performance? The seller, the buyer, the broker. All parties have equal chance. The answer is the buyer. Specific performance means sue to perform the terms of the contracts. Specific performance is available to both the seller and buyer. The buyer is more likely to force the seller to sell, since it was the seller who put the property on the market. When a sales contract is signed, the earnest money is not legally necessary. The consideration required by law, set by the buyer. The answer is not legally necessary. Money is not required in a sales contract, and it is not consideration. It is used as liquidated damages if the buyer is in default. Consideration in a contract is the promises made. A listing agent is posting her new listing to her social media accounts. In this case, she needs to meet the same criteria as print advertising. Doesn't need to meet the same criteria as print advertising. Only needs to put her phone number with the posting in case a buyer wants to see the property. Does not need to add her name, brokerage firm, or phone number since it is clear who she is within her account. The answer is she needs to meet the same criteria as print advertising. Any advertising in social media must meet the same requirements as other advertising. A real estate sales licensee may contact an expired listing client to solicit new to business. Indefinitely. Never. 18 months after a sales transaction. Within the first 18 months after expiration. The answer is within the first 18 months after expiration. To avoid the risk of being fined, it is recommended that you handle expired listings like you would past clients and solicit referrals or relists no longer than 18 months after the expiration. According to the Do Not Call rules, a real estate sales licensee may contact a past client for relationship building purposes. Within the first 18 months after a sales transaction. Indefinitely. 18 months after a sales transaction. Never. The answer is indefinitely. According to the Do Not Call rules, calling past clients for relationship building purposes, that is, to follow up, provide information, etc., may be done for an indefinite period of time. Anyone who calls persons on the Do Not Call list could face which of the following penalties? Fines and imprisonment. Fines. Imprisonment. Revocation of his or her real estate license. The answer is fines. Anyone who violates the law and calls people who are on the Do Not Call list could be fined by the FTC for up to $16,000 for each illegal call, or even higher fines by the Federal Communications Commission or FCC. Revocation of licenses and imprisonment are not part of the law. An established business relationship exists if the consumer was involved in a transaction with the company during the previous 12 months, 18 months, 6 months. The answer is 18 months. For an EBR to exist, the consumer must have been involved in a transaction with the company during the previous 18 months. Advertising property or services by real estate professionals, even on social media, should, at a minimum, include the license number of the broker and salesperson, the brokerage firm's name, the office and home phone number of the real estate professional placing the ad, the brokerage firm, broker's name, license number, and phone number. The answer is the brokerage firm's name. States may require additional information, but at a minimum, the brokerage firm's name should be included in advertisements. Telephone calls soliciting services as listing agent may be made to FSBOs who are on the do not call list. At any time. Only if the FSBO is a client in the past 18 months. Never. Only if the real estate professional has a buyer interested in the property. The answer is only if the real estate professional has a buyer interested in the property. For your protection, it is recommended that you first confirm whether a FSBO is on the list. If the phone number appears on the list, avoid calling this listing on the phone and offering your services as a listing agent if you do not already have a buyer who has expressed an interest in the home. An established business relationship exists if the consumer has made an inquiry with the company within how many months prior to the call? 6, 18, 12, 3. The answer is 3. For an EBR to exist, the consumer must have made an inquiry with the company within 3 months before the call. On a salesperson's website, she has listed her name, area of specialty, the brokerage firm, and the firm's phone number. What else does she need to be in compliance? Her cell phone number. Nothing. Her license number. Her email address. The answer is nothing. The salesperson might include her cell phone number and email address for ease of contact and would need to include her license number, but the current website meets the requirement of listing the brokerage firm. Which of the following ads for an open house would be considered to be a blind ad? 123 Ash Street, open 1-4, call Sarah Smith, broker at 520-969-8989 for information. ABC Realty. 123 Ash Street, open 1-4, call 520-969-8989 for information. 123 Ash Street, open 1-4, ABC Realty, call 520-969-8989 for information. 123 Ash Street, open 1-4, ABC Realty. The answer is 123 Ash Street, open -4, call 520-969-8989 for information. This ad has no information that ties it to a brokerage firm or real estate professional and is known as a blind ad. A listing broker is advertising a small condo close to downtown. Which of the following ads would meet the seller's need to sell and not violate fair housing or advertising laws? Perfect bachelor pad. This condo is a single man's dream. Small enough to keep clean but updated for those romantic evenings. Close to downtown bars and entertainment. Won't last. Call Sarah, 900-000-2100. Jewel in the City, cozy updated condo. Easy walking distance to downtown restaurants and entertainment. Bring your pickiest buyers. They will love this special home. Sarah Smith, ABC Realty, 900-000-2100. Downsizing special. The condo is perfect for the downsizing married couple. She will love the updated kitchen. He will appreciate the 2-car garage. Sarah Smith, 900-000-2100. Updated condo in the city. This home is perfect for a couple or a single person, with walking distance to a mosque, Catholic cathedral, and a Jewish synagogue. Updated and ready to move into. Call 900-000-2100. The answer is Jewel in the City, cozy updated condo. Easy walking distance to downtown restaurants and entertainment. Bring your pickiest buyers. They will love this special home. Sarah Smith, ABC Realty, 900-000-2100. This ad does not eliminate families or other buyers and presents clear facts and meets the requirements of listing the brokerage firm. Suggesting that a home is good only for heterosexual married couples or single people or people of a specific religion violates fair housing and limits the people who might respond, inhibiting the seller's need to sell. The do not call rules apply to telephone solicitations made in state only to persons who made an inquiry within the last 12 months, both in state and state to state only. The answer is both in state and state to state. The do not call rules apply to both interstate and intrastate telephone calls. Parties must have made an inquiry within the past 3 months to allow solicitation. The purpose of the National Do Not Call list is to block unwanted personal calls from relatives, block 800 and 900 calls from being made from a home, reduce unsolicited telephone sales calls, minimize the door-to-door sales calls. The answer is to reduce unsolicited telephone sales calls. The purpose of the Do Not Call list is to reduce the number of unsolicited telephone sales calls being made to the general public. Which of the following ads is in compliance with the advertising laws? Great home, perfect for entertaining. Bring your pickiest buyers. ABC Realty 363-525-0000. Is this small home is perfect for a couple looking to downsize or as a bachelor pad? Call Sandy at ABC Realty. This home is perfect for a large Catholic family. Plenty of bedrooms and only a block from the cathedral and school. Call Sandy at ABC Realty. Hi Facebook friends, I just listed 425 Elm Street for $100. Feel free to share this post and IM me if you are interested. The answer is great home, perfect for entertaining. Bring your pickiest buyers. ABC Realty 363-525-0000. Mentioning religion is against fair housing, and adding downsizing or bachelor pad implies families are not wanted. Which of the following ads is the best example of puffing? The schools in this neighborhood are the best in town. The walking score in this area is the best in the city. For the city, this is a totally safe neighborhood. There is no crime. This house has the best views you will find in the city. The answer is this house has the best views you will find in the city. Puffing is making a statement that anyone would know is an exaggeration and can't be proven. Schools, crime rates, and walking scores can all be verified. Views are an opinion. While showing a property to a buyer, the salesperson stated that the property had the most attractive landscaping of any property in the county. This statement constituted unintentional misrepresentation, misrepresentation, puffing, fraud. The answer is puffing. Puffing is making a statement anyone would know is not factually true. A colorless, odorless gas that comes from the soil and can cause lung issues is known as radon, lead paint, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. The answer is radon. Radon is radioactive gas given off by soil that can cause lung issues. Carbon monoxide is a poisonous gas given off by combustion. Carbon dioxide is found in the air and used by plants to create oxygen. Lead paint is not a gas. A poisonous gas given off as part of combustion is known as carbon monoxide. Radon, lead paint, carbon dioxide. The answer is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is poisonous gas given off by combustion. Carbon dioxide is found in the air and used by plants to create oxygen. Lead paint is not a gas. Radon is a radioactive gas given off by soil that can cause lung issues. A gas that may be emitted from items such as furniture, draperies, carpet, and insulation is formaldehyde, chlorine, chlorofluorocarbon, methane. The answer is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is emitted by most building materials. Asbestos is not a gas. Methane is a gas created from combustion, and radon is gas emitted from soil. A listing is for property that was once the site of a methamphetamine lab, but the property has been cleaned. The seller and listing agent should discuss this fact with the seller but not with any potential buyers. Disclose this fact only if asked. Disclose this fact to potential buyers. Not disclose this fact since it is not related to health or safety. The answer is to disclose this fact to potential buyers. All environmental issues that impact a property must be fully disclosed to the buyer. Exposure to lead is associated with skin rashes, physical and mental impairments in children, lung disease, irritation to the eyes, nose, and throat. The answer is physical and mental impairments in children. Lead can cause issues in adults, however, since they are larger, they can more readily metabolize lead and are less likely to be impaired than children. Sealing spray with a fluffy, stringy material may indicate the presence of insulation, lead-based paint, radon gas, asbestos. The answer is asbestos. Asbestos may be found in flooring, heat duct covers, and popcorn ceilings. If a property contains lead-based paint, the obligations of the seller include all of the following except to share any report or inspection with information about lead-based paint on the property, to disclose what the seller has knowledge of, to give the buyer the booklet Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home, to remove all lead-based paint before closing. The answer is to remove all lead-based paint before closing. The seller is not required to remove the lead-based paint. The seller is required to complete disclosures and share any reports or inspections that show lead paint on the property. The seller is also obligated to give the buyer the informational booklet. Prolonged exposure to radon is believed to cause which of the following health risks? Heart attacks, skin rashes, strokes, lung damage. The answer is lung damage. Radon exposure is tied to lung cancer. All of the following statements about radon are true except it is colorless. It is a liquid released in the soil. It is created during the natural decay of radioactive uranium. It is odorless. The answer is it is a liquid released in the soil. Radon is a radioactive gas contained in soil. In general, methamphetamine labs are very complex, require special lab equipment, can be created using ordinary household items, require advanced knowledge of science. The answer is can be created using ordinary household items. One of the issues with meth is the ease of creating it. Which of the following is a viable way to mitigate radon exposure in an existing home? All of these. Covering exposed dirt in unfinished basements. Sealing the concrete in basements and crawl spaces. Basement pressurization. The answer is all of these. Radon is found in the soil, and building on top of radon soil means the building is likely to contain the gas. Pressurizing and venting basements, along with covering exposed soil and sealing foundation walls, are all part of radon mitigation. Whose obligation is it to disclose potential lead-based paint to buyers of homes built before January 1, 1978? Either the listing or buyer's agent. The buyer's agent. The seller. The listing agent. The answer is the seller. The law states that the seller must make the disclosure. The real estate professionals are obligated to make sure all parties are in compliance with the law. A listing agent has been asked to provide a second contract with different terms to take to a lender. What should the agent do? Make sure the seller, buyer, and buyer's agent are aware of the two contracts. Do it only if the difference is minor. Consult the title company. Refuse to do this. The answer is to refuse to do this. This is loan fraud. Buyers and sellers may want to do this in order to try to avoid rules on financing made by lenders. All parties may be fined, and the agent might lose his or her license if found out. A buyer's agent prepares a sales contract in which the selling price or down payment is falsely stated. Such action is an allowable brokerage contract, legal but unethical practice, blind contract, misrepresentation. The answer is misrepresentation. Any false statement is a misrepresentation. At an open house, an interested buyer asks the listing agent a number of questions. The agent may answer questions about all of the following except how close the property is to shopping, the ranking of the local schools, why the sellers are moving from such a lovely home, are there any ethnic restaurants nearby. The answer is why the sellers are moving from such a lovely home. The seller's reasons for moving are confidential information and cannot be disclosed without written consent of the seller. Real estate professionals involved in fraudulent deals could face all of the following penalties except lose their licenses and commission, go to jail without a hearing, get a bad reputation, be convicted of a crime. The answer is to go to jail without a hearing. All professionals must be given a hearing before they can be convicted. Real estate professionals involved in fraudulent deals could lose their licenses, commissions, and reputations. They could also be convicted of a crime.
You made it to the end. Congrats. If you're looking to study more right now, head over to our exam practice question playlist. We have hundreds of questions waiting for you. Subscribe to our channel and you'll get notified when we release our next exam prep tools to help you pass the real estate exam. Good luck. See you soon.